Guys, so I'm going to be reviewing my October pick for our book club, which was A Year Without Makeup, Tales of a 20-something Traveler by Stephanie Yoder. I actually finished a book on time for once. I think it helped that it was like 74 pages long. The thing was, I had a really hard time getting hold of this book, like, in the entire state of Pennsylvania. I think I said this before. I couldn't get a hold of it except for on an e-reader. So, Leslie, I don't know, Beth, if you have some kind of e-reader. I don't think you do. But Leslie, I think you mentioned before you have some way of e-reading things. So if you want to borrow it, let me know. And I can lend it to you. There's a lend button. So let me know, and I can do that. Usually I do a theme kind of thing for these, but I couldn't think of a traveler themed outfit. I probably could, but I didn't. Year Without Makeup it's a collection of tales from this girl's blog about how she took a year off from work and everything else and went and traveled. She was originally going to go to New Zealand and Europe and China and like all over Asia, but she only ended up making it to like China, Japan, Vietnam, and then her plans changed, and then she ended up going to South America. The book only covers like her travels in Asia, and it's only a couple of stories, but it's really short. The interesting and good thing about this book is it brought up some tips for traveling and even how to save up money for traveling that I didn't think of before. Like when it comes to saving money, she was saying how it's like a diet. You can't just be like completely strict all the time, or you're gonna end up splurging on stuff you don't necessarily need or want at the time because you just want to spend money. Kind of like when you diet, if you starve yourself, you're gonna end up splurging eventually. But she said to like limit your spending, yes, but don't like limit yourself from spending on like big things you want. Like she said to help her save money, she cut out little stuff. Like she didn't buy lunch, she packed her lunch, and she ended up moving with her parents so she could save up money instead of spending on rent. She sold her car. But she really wanted to go visit her friend in San Francisco, so she bought a plane ticket to go see them. So stuff like that. But she had 10,000 saved up in the bank, and she wanted 20,000 to take the year off. So she ended up saving 10,000, and she had 8 months to do it. And she ended up doing it by following the little tips she outlines in her book. So there's a lot of little tips that I was like, oh, that's completely doable. And she said that there is people that she talked to who are like, oh, I could never do that. And she's like, yeah, I don't understand why you couldn't. It's completely doable. So I thought that was cool because usually when people talk about how they travel, they don't really ever talk about how they saved up money, or if they do travel, it's some kind of windfall that they had. They kind of like lucked into the money, but this is from a perspective of somebody who is, really saving up her pennies and going. Another good and important part of the book is she talks about some like safe tips for traveling for guys and girls. Like, for instance, like take a card of the hotel you're staying at with you so that if something happens, you have the last place you stayed at, and also if you get lost, it'll help you kind of find your way back if you ask for directions. Of course, if you go out, don't let anybody else touch your drink. And there were some other helpful tips in there that I thought were interesting because, again, nobody really ever talks about that stuff when traveling. They're just like, oh, c'est la vie, I met all these people and it was awesome. But they don't really talk about the reality that travel can be dangerous, whether you're a man or a woman, but especially for a woman out there if you're traveling alone. She probably only told like a handful of stories about the places she went. They were interesting and they were good. But my thing is, I'm not really interested in a lot of Asian travel. I did learn a couple things about Asia and traveling in general from her book, so that was good. But as far as like, I don't really care to go to Asia. So when I read books like this is about as close as I want to get to going to Asia. So in that respect, it takes you to a place that you may never want to go to, but it's like you've gone there. So that's something nice about the book. But yeah, she talked about going to Vietnam and China and Japan. It was like for when I read Eat, Pray, Love. My favorite part of the book was Italy because it was like, oh, all this life and people in Europe, which is what I'm interested in. And then when we got to the part of the book where she went to India and I can't remember the last place, it was like, I was kind of putting up with the book. So it's nice to read about places I've never been to before, but I don't really care about reading about China or or whatever. So I wasn't really super interested in the subject matter of A Year Without Makeup, but I mean, it was nice to read about the places. I don't really find any negative things about it. I wish it were a little bit longer, or I wish that she came out with more. But I mean, she has a blog that she gets paid to do, so there's that. If I wanted to read more of her stuff. And overall, I would give her book probably a 4 out of 5 stars. So my pick for November, I asked Leslie and Bethy, what should I read? Because I wasn't really sure, because I've kind of read all the things that we kind of wanted to cover for our book club, and there's only 2 months left. And so they were like, pick something classic. So I'm kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, and with my book club pick for November, because it's a classic, which Bethy and Leslie were like, read something classic, and also I wanted to read it because the Vlogbrothers are doing an adaptation of it, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. I'm going to be diving back into the semi-painful world of Jane Austen for November. As for December, I don't really know. If we had a bigger following, I would ask you guys in the comments what I should read, but I don't know. So, yep, that's my pick for November, and then we'll see what for December. I don't know. Maybe I'll read A Christmas Carol again, because I try to read that every year around Christmas, and I never really get through it. It'd be nice too. So that might be my pick for December. I have a bit of a surprise for you. He's not technically mine. He's technically my roommate's. But I help take care of him. His name is Kit, short for Kitsune. Because he's a Shiba Inu, which is a Japanese dog. Kitsune means fox in Japanese because he looks like a little fox. I'll probably have a video up of him at some point, I think. And I still have Isis down there right now. You can hear her in the background of this entire vlog. Yeah, and that's actually going pretty well. She's a little bit of a pain in the ass with him so far. She's a lot more gentle with him than I thought she'd be. But on the whole, she wants to play with him, and he can't really play with her yet, and he gets annoyed because when she'll try to put her paw on him, and he doesn't like that, because, her paw is huge compared to him. He's only 2 months old, so he's very little, and right now he's sleeping. But yeah, so that's a little bit of a surprise for you guys. Hopefully you'll get to meet him at some point. I love you, and I'm gonna go dive into Emma.